I can tell you that in terms of brokerages, the hottest areas right now are Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, in that order.
Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia.
So that's why we do the awards, for example, the Finance Magnates Annual Awards that we did them in October last year. We're going to do them again this year in October. So we are looking at ways of recognizing brands in a fair way that is representative of the industry on multiple levels.
What do you see? How do you see the landscape changing? What tools are you using? We were speaking about Forex Live before. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the challenge of, currently it's only English, and you need to add obviously Spanish for the LATAM area, and we've got the Asia, whatever. Language is a big one, and I think that's very easy to solve today with AI. Super easy.
But we don't do things that way. When we're talking about finance magnates, listen. AI, it's here to stay, for sure. It's a very useful tool, but it's a tool. You should never, my personal advice and what I apply throughout our organization, you should not think that AI can replace you.
Welcome to the Financial Frontiers podcast. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that bell icon to get notified when we upload new content. Follow us on Spotify and give us a 5-star rating. It will help the channel, which I hope you love so much.
Here we are as another Financial Frontiers podcast. Today my guest is Andrea, who from, I don't know the surname.
Badiola Mateos.
That sounds Spanish.
It is actually. Very.
Okay. We're going to hear more about you, your background. I'll just give a quick introduction. You're from Finance Magnates, Chief Commercial Officer.
Correct.
And Finance Magnates, for those who don't know, are one of the leaders in the event organizing that everyone attends to, all the whole industry and all these guests that I've had on the show. You guys organize the events, and so here we're in a digital format, speaking to somebody who's very experienced in the physical format. So Andrea, please
digital
tell us
as well as
and digital as well. Yeah. Let's hear all about what the group of companies, because there's a group of companies, I understand, what you do. Introduce yourself. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dinos, for inviting me today, for inviting us. It's interesting to be on the other side of the interview. Usually I'm the one interviewing, so it's a different experience for me this time. As you said, we like to modestly think of finance magnates as being the point where everybody meets in this industry. We were one of the very first companies in the fintech industry, starting back in 2008 as Forex Magnates, as many may remember. It was Forex Magnates back in the day, founded by Michael Greenberg, that was a pioneer in covering the news on the B2B side of the fintech industry. And that's how this whole journey started. So he started with a small blog called Forex Magnates, where he, because of the network that he had at the time, when he was just journalisting, he started to cover some of the B2B news happening in this wave of new electronic trading companies in 2008. All the new brokerages, the license was not even properly created. It was very, very new, all of it. And he started covering that. There was nobody doing that at the time. Everybody went towards the retail side, right? Everybody was covering the market. And he started to cover the B2B, which was new. And from that, a little blog like Forex Magnates started to grow. Eventually, in 2014, rebranded to Finance Magnates because of the extension of assets that it started to cover and the different industries that it was covering within the fintech. And in 2012, right before that, it was our first Finance Magnates London Summit, FMLS, which is a trademark nowadays of B2B quality for networking. And from that, every year was multiple events spanning from Japan to Istanbul, Chile, Barcelona, you name it, we've done it a little bit everywhere. The last ones since COVID, so we added the Finance Magnates Africa Summit in South Africa, that this year is going to be in Cape Town. And we did the Australia, so FMPS, Pacific Summit, and the FMLS that is always every single year. This year I think it's going to be the 14th. So yeah, in 2016 December, Michael acquired Forex Live, which is our retail side of the business. And then 2019, he acquired the IFX Expo events, which everybody knows of as well. So that's where the group of companies comes from a little bit, because we have events from 2 different brands, 2 different sites, and then we have all of the research that we gather, the news that we cover, etc. So yeah, offline, online. That's what we try to do.
Actually, I did know that, but I forgot that detail. Is that Michael Greenberg started out from online?
Yeah,
that's interesting, with a blog.
Yeah,
and blogging was, if I recall back then, around the 2000 to 2010, was an important online marketing strategy.
It was, yeah,
because it's all text. The SEO search engine crawlers, the bots, they go and they find the text, and then there was a strategy around it. I never got into it, but I didn't know the theory.
It still is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's adjusted, I would imagine. Okay, and then there's a lot to cover here, because you've said quite a few things here. So, all right, let's go back. Right, you said it was Forex Magnates, and then switched to Finance Magnates.
Yeah, in 2014. Yeah.
In 2014, and then from blogging moved into straight into physical events, the FMLS? Or?
No, it never moved away from online. Online is actually our core business. When we're talking about the news, our websites, financemagnates.com and forexlive.com, this is our day-to-day. This is what we run.
And obviously Forex Live came afterwards, which was just purchased.
Yes, exactly. So Forex Live was a different brand that existed that we did an acquisition from at the end of 2016. So we added it because it was complementary, So we had the B2B website that enabled us to gather the whole community online. Then we started with the events in 2012. Mm-hmm. So that's where we brought the community offline. Mm-hmm. And it was separate from IFX back then. And then in 2016, we said, okay, we have B2B online and offline. We're missing retail, right? So that's when we acquired Forex Live, and we added the retail side of the industry as well. So it gives us an access to every single side of the industry, online and offline.
And also different demographics or different categories within the same industry. So Indeed. Traders and the B2B.
Correct.
Which I think the one helps the other.
Absolutely. They're absolutely complementary. And when we're talking to all of our partners and actors in the industry, some of them are very, very specified into having an audience that is purely B2B, like yourselves, for example. But there is, whenever you're talking about brokerages, what they call B2B, which is IBs and affiliates. For us, that's not B2B, that's B2C, right? They have that side, and then they have all of the traders. So that's purely retail. So that was the part that we were missing back then. And then we added since 2016, 2017.
Right. Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, B2B stands for business to business. B2C
Correct.
Stands for business to consumer.
Exactly.
Or client.
Yeah, both work.
Yeah. And also that is whether you regard an affiliate, say you're a broker who relies on affiliates to bring more traders, it makes sense that the affiliate sees the broker sees the affiliate or the introducing broker as a B2B relationship, because but in your perspective, an affiliate and a retail, they're both from the same, let's call it, bucket. That's B2C for you.
It is. I mean, they're at the end of the day, in most cases, they're individuals that they just enable another group of individuals. So for us, it counts as retail, because also the kind of needs that these IBs and affiliates have would be quite similar to what the retail consumer, the end consumer would have. They would be looking at the same kind of news, the same kind of reports. They may be interested in a little bit the B2B side of the industry to know who to partner with, to what extent. So for reputational purposes, they would go on visiting, for example, Finance Magnates QIR report or the news or, fines that we have published about, etc. But they would mostly be looking at what the market is doing, what's happening with euro dollar, anything that is retail focused. So that would be on the Forex Live side.
Mm-hmm. It's super interesting because there's so much more than just the event-based business, which I honestly thought it was the main driver. There's so much more, and also speaking to your colleague Neofit or Neo, with the plans around the data that you guys have collected, which is a gold mine. What was the saying I've heard? Data is the new oil.
It is.
Data is the new oil.
Yeah, that's why it's called data mining as well, right?
Data mining.
I'm guessing.
Is that intentional? That's interesting. I never thought of that. I never made
Possibly.
that link.
I don't know. I think I organically associated both terms because it's like it's a gold mine, right? When you're talking about data, and nowadays whatever you talk about is data. It's already been a while, but I think particularly these days, us as Finance Magnates, because of these access and so many years, and the network that we have, if you compound the experience that the people in key positions in our company have, and you compound their experience and their network, I mean, it's probably the largest that the industry has. And that's the goal, right? That Finance Magnates has the biggest experts in specific topics so that we can tap into not just the network, the data. And if you accumulate all the data that we have since 2008 and you actually do something with it, right? So we have always been doing the QIR, the quarterly industry report, because it was just obvious, but this has been happening, 10 years now. So we publish every single quarter volumes data, the rankings of the brokers by volume. In some cases, it's reported volumes. In other cases, we get it through our network and we get access that is exclusive to ourselves, basically, on this. And we gather to produce these sort of tables and classifications of what the industry is doing on FX, on CFDs. We also try to show how much the industry is growing on different topics, what's hot, because we are positioned in a privileged place to see what's happening around us. So the QIR was always there, but as you know from Neo as well, it's a big let's say direction for us going forward to be the major central point for data. And this has come very organically because we have always done custom-made reports for especially big companies that want to enter the fintech industry and they don't really understand anything about it. So they go on the website, they go on Finance Magnates, they read, but they don't get quite an idea, and the QIR remains a little bit too brief for the needs that they have. So major players that due to NDAs I cannot disclose on this podcast, but major players from other industries are coming to us and asking us to do custom-made reports for them based on their needs, for them to know where they should enter the market, how would be the angle that they should take, who they should be talking to, who are major players, who are secondary players, where is the most relevant part for them to focus on. So this is a big impact that we want to have in producing these kind of data on multiple levels for anybody to access and provide the information, the educational resources, and the data for businesses to take the industry forward. That's our mission between the events and the online, the data intelligence and the education, is to recognize the players that are pioneering, give them a space to express themselves and to bring new ideas on the table, and take that way the industry forward.
It's the discussion about data being a broad topic. You could really narrow it down to many different opportunities. So you mentioned you having the network that you have, Finance Magnates, you're able to produce reports and give an accurate insight on the volume that's getting traded within this retail space.
Correct.
So that's one thing, that's one value on its own. But then it's all this other stuff that you've mentioned, which I'm going to break down and kind of almost repeat in the way I processed it, is so for a broker, what's trending in terms of trading.
Correct.
And which demographics to target, and what instruments to promote within your marketing efforts, and what you spend money on. If, let's say, a certain jurisdiction is really interested in gold, for example, and you're really investing heavy in promoting the euro dollar, which is not interesting for that jurisdiction, you're saving them a lot of money.
Correct,
giving them that insight. So that's one. That's another one. The other, which I'm sure you've maybe stumbled upon, maybe this wasn't intentional, but you're able to pick up on a potential, so not just the trends within the, which we just spoke about, but also what emerging technologies are coming up.
Correct, yeah.
With these businesses that are coming through with new ideas, new kind of innovations. And you're able to see, almost have a prediction with the data that you have, almost predict which way something's going to go, the way the industry is going to kind of morph into. And it is a strong position. And it seems like you guys are really taking the bull by the horn.
Yes, we have. If there is one thing I can say is that Michael's drive, particularly in the business, he's fearless. I mean, he's a really good businessman. He's very focused, but he's fearless. He's not afraid of testing new ideas, and he trusts his team, which is amazing. When you're directly managed by somebody like this, and you have the freedom to explore and to test ideas. And I think for me personally, since I've been in the company for almost 9 years now, the evolution that you see in the industry, I feel very excited to be in an actor in the industry that has such a wide vision of what's happening at any given point. Because when we do the events, I usually moderate the leaders panel, and I love to take these opportunities because you have in one stage gathered top CEOs of multi-billion-dollar brands sitting, and you can ask them whatever you want. Yeah. So pretty much. So it's very interesting, and all of this converts into the internal knowledge that we have within the company. And what you're saying, that we have the vision of all of these that's happening, and the temperature that we feel also from the news, right? Because again, it's not just me, it's multiple people in the company and our aggregated network. So we discuss internally. We get tips from people that contact us, this is happening, that is happening. We cover it with the news, and we know we're always first, and everybody waits for us to confirm something before going ahead with something. And when we set up topics for events and things like that, it's based on the temperature of the industry, right? Where it is going. So it's a little bit scary, because that the moment you're going to start talking about something, people are going to start talking about that, and they're going to follow. So there is a lot of responsibility on that as well. And on the other hand is, if you don't talk about something, then that's not really happening. So you either identify something and bring it to the spotlight, or you steer the pot by bringing ideas from other industries, for example. So It's a challenge.
So I've never met Michael Greenberg myself, just in the industry, because obviously familiar faces. I attend these events. It's just by hello. Never actually spoken to him, but from the outside, I could tell he is a relentless entrepreneur, because you see, first of all, you see the success of the actual events. Right, that's something that is for me is a really difficult thing to accomplish. How do you get, especially starting out, when you're an event organizer and nobody knows you as a brand or as an organizer? How do you get people interested enough to attend? Because those very first events, the success of the future events coming from that point on, is very reliant on that first event and the impression that you leave. Yeah. Because if there was no attendance, So I guess, there's a lot of things to think about. Don't go too big. Keep the space small, because you don't expect a big turnout, but it looks busy. And then you there's a lot of, I guess, tricks that you could work around. Something which I find quite difficult. And another milestone in my mind where I thought, these guys know what they're doing, or at least trying, and you mentioned this quite a few times. If you don't try, you got to know how to pick yourself up. If you attempted something, it didn't work. This is the life of any entrepreneur. If you try something and it failed miserably, you fell down, you got to get up, dust yourself off, and keep going and learn. And I saw this from the outside with the COVID, and I thought, oh my, this business is in big trouble. And very quickly, you brought the virtual one, which I don't know if it was successful or not, but I attended it. It didn't have the same feel for me as an attendee on the virtual space, but I saw it was a bit busy. But I thought to myself, kudos to the organizers here who thought of doing this, right? Because we didn't know what was going to happen with the lockdowns and COVID. Is this going to be live forever? Is everything going to be online for forever? We didn't know what was going to happen. And if you don't try and figure out this new world which we didn't know what it was going to be,
right?
I thought that kudos, well done. And with that, I'd like to ask you, how with the success of that virtual event, and what were the challenges that you guys faced during COVID, and what did you actually do to keep afloat? Because you're obviously still around.
Bigger than ever.
Bigger than ever. Well done. That COVID madness has gone away, thank goodness. How did you push through that? Because just one last thing, many people in the same position would have closed down.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I'm not gonna lie, COVID was tough. It was very tough, and I think it actually, I have huge respect for Michael as a businessman in particular, because like you're saying, anybody else would have just closed down, I think most of his white hair comes from that period, to be honest. Because I know this is very confusing for a lot of people in the industry, but Finance Magnates and Conversion Pros was never the same company. It was two very different ownerships, two very different teams, management, everything. We did collaborate to a certain extent to help each other out, especially in events, which is, I think, where the confusion was coming from, because we help with some sales, we help with the stages management because of the content, because Finance Magnates is known for the quality content, right? So we were manning the stages. But it did not belong to Michael at the time. Then in 2019, right before COVID, Michael took a big decision, and he decided to purchase the IFX brand from Conversion Pros. And it couldn't have come at a worse time, because then COVID hit. And if you look at what, you think as an entrepreneur, you're purchasing a business that the whole business depends on offline activities, and suddenly there is nothing happening, nothing. So it was extremely challenging, but I think that Michael's leadership was crucial. And there were very pivotal people within the company that, it's the duck paddling under the water constantly. You don't sit down and wait. Like you look for solutions. You need to be solution oriented. And again, this is what we look at having as team members in the company, right? People that are experts in their field, so you can quickly come up with solutions. And they came up because he acquired IFX, but it wasn't merged with Finance Magnates. It was still two separate operations. There was two separate teams. So they decided to come up with Ultimate Fintech as a brand, and the agency as the ultimate fintech marketing agency, because that was not depending on offline. And they had the network. So they thought, what do we have? We have the network, we have the clients, the potential clients, we have the in-house knowledge on how to do marketing, we have Finance Magnates and Forex Live for the visibility that we need to give these brands. Let's go. We have designers, we have content writers. Let's repurpose the team into something that is online. And it thrived. It not only survived, it actually thrived. And nowadays, the agency, it's a thriving business in itself. And after COVID, the IFX events reopened. So you end up, after COVID, way stronger than you started, with multiple events brands. So you have IFX Expo, you have Realty On, you have the FM Summits, then you have the online business with Finance Magnates and Forex Lab, and then you have the marketing agency. So it multiplied, actually, because of the drive and the approach that you take to things. We cannot just sit ducks, literally. We need to paddle, find solutions. So
of course, and then what you'll discover is he actually doubled, or maybe more than doubled, his business, because the online marketing agency would have never existed had the temporary pause, the forceful pause of the offline events being pushed onto that business.
Correct. Yeah.
And I can only imagine what Michael must have been going through. I don't know how much he bought that company for. Let's say it's in the millions. I don't know, but you did that, and then literally, 2019, in February, right? In February, COVID was. So then you're like, oh my God!
Literally buy an events company, and all the events closed. So. Yeah, it could have been a disaster, really. And it wasn't. From the Finance Magnates side, the virtual one that you're mentioning, for example,
how was
earlier.
That? Who thought of that? That was, I thought it was great in terms of, thinking out of the box.
That was another way of thinking, because we already had the online side of the business, and the events team thought, okay, let's get creative. So they said, okay, why don't we take the event online? And we gather everybody. So we looked for solutions, we looked for softwares and things like that. And eventually it came to the idea of having a virtual summit that, like you said, it didn't have the same feel. Everybody was in there because we were all needing the networking. You need people. You need the networking for the B2B industry for your business to survive and to grow. You need to meet people. So when you cannot meet them offline, then you have to meet them online. There is no other choice. So that's why it was successful. But there was no way that you can replace the human feeling of shaking somebody's hand and looking eye on eye, right?
Reading body language. It's a whole lot. It's you cannot compare. Humans, we're humans. This is the way we were built. This online stuff is very new to everyone, it's to humanity. So and then so the online agency, is that still under Ultimate Fintech?
Yeah, it's the Ultimate Fintech marketing agency.
And so could any agency just go there and say, please handle my marketing for me, my online marketing, and it's a service? Literally,
yeah. So we have a lot of brands from the finance industry, particularly brokers, some service providers as well, but mostly brokers, because they are the ones that have the biggest needs in terms of volume of marketing to do. So they do everything from rebranding websites to running PPC campaigns and design services, reputation management, you name it. So it created a whole range of services that already existed, but us as our network, we were not doing back then. So it was horizontal expansion, basically, something that it was just a natural step to grow and offer this kind of service in the industry.
Right. And then, so that's to brokers now, but I've also seen that you're trying to tap into other verticals.
Yeah.
So I know that you're obviously very successful within the fintech financial services space, the retail financial services space, with both companies. So with Finance Magnates and with Ultimate Fintech, with the purchase of IFX, both focusing on the same industry. But I think you also have had a couple of events on the real estate.
Yes, Realty On, yes.
And how's that going?
So this is part of a vision that, as the expansion and the impact that we can have. So we want to organize our strategy in a way that we don't have to limit to a type of financial product, but eventually we can tap into multiple financial products, you name it. So Realtion was a kind of easy way, let's say, to expand into another type of investment asset, which is real estate, right? Because when you are in Cyprus and you have the network in Cyprus, like you found out this morning, we actually know each other through my husband, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Wasim. Shout out to Wasim. Great guy.
At the end of the day, we all know each other in Cyprus. So it was pretty easy to take just, again, internal resources. We know how to produce events, which you mentioned earlier. It's super difficult to produce an event. You need to start a year in advance, and it's a lot of resources. But once you have the knowledge and you have the team and you know how to do it, it's a matter of, just dedicating the time and just press duplicate, right? So they thought that it might be a good idea to do in Cyprus a real estate event as another type of investment asset, because it's to a certain extent a similar crowd, but also a larger one at the same time. Mm-hmm. A lot of people that are in the fintech industry are also involved in the real estate, especially if you're speaking of C-levels, etc. Everybody usually has real estate assets, etc. So it was pretty low-hanging fruit, let's say, to do an event on this. And this year, I think, is going to be the second year and growing. So the idea is that through the combination of all the companies, events and data, online, agency, etc., we can tap simultaneously and grow into different assets. So from the obvious Forex and crypto, CFDs, etc., you go to banking, payments, obviously tech, and then real estate is another one. So from there, sky's the limit. In terms of investment products, we're not lacking them. So
yeah, good. So that is interesting how that decision came about, and this also ties into what makes a successful businessman, right? Mm-hmm. Where if you had to go, see what's within your means and increasing your chances of success. Mm-hmm. And I never knew that you guys thought of the real estate as another asset class in terms of investment, which makes a lot of sense. Because, if you had to go and enter into the same space, again, you are event organizers, but in the food industry, right, you've got a lot more challenges there.
You need to start from scratch.
Almost from scratch. You got the blueprint to follow in terms of what it takes to organize events.
Yeah, but you don't have the network, or you don't have the connections or the know-how of the industry itself.
Yeah, which is a massive portion of being successful in this space.
It is. Again, it all comes down to what's your in-house knowledge and expertise, which is why in every key position that we have, we try to have the best of the best. So when it comes to data, we hire the best of the best for data. When we are talking about online B2B news, we have the best of the best to cover that in terms of journalism. B2C, the same. Events, the same. It's all a matter of making sure that it's not random people that are running key functions in the companies, but it's people that actually know what they're talking about. So if you're an expert in fintech and that's your domain, you could look at it into expanding into food, but
it's too many challenges there.
Yeah, I think it would be a bit more
unknown
delicate.
Territory, 100%.
Yeah, but banking, for example, payments, anything, it's a different industry, right? Banking and payments, it's a whole different industry, but they intersect with fintech enormously. Yeah,
and there's a lot of common providers.
Correct.
To both the industry, to both those sectors.
But they are each of them kind of in their own bubble, even in terms of events, right? So some come to the IFX and FM events, but others don't, and they don't even know about these events. So the cross-selling opportunity there and the expansion opportunity there, it's also something to account for. And when you have people in-house that have experience in the payments or the banking industry, or you bring that knowledge in-house, then you can do that. Same with the real estate, right? Mm-hmm.
I attended just after the Dubai Expo. I went to Barcelona. I attended the ICE Barcelona 2025. So it's the first time I went to an ICE event, which is in the gaming.
Massive.
So I go into this hall, right? I was really impressed. You know, they had this
3D curtain.
3D curtain.
I've heard
correct.
of the 3D curtain, the smoke.
The 3D curtain.
Right?
So there's like this steam, and then there's a projector, and you
Yeah.
walk through this thing. You feel like you're in some kind of sci-fi movie. Then I walk into this hall, right? And one of the providers there, Evolution. I have no affiliation with these companies, but I'll mention them. So Evolution, the biggest booth stand I've seen. I don't think booth justifies. It was a whole.
An area, right? It's
Massive on its own, huge, with screens, high definition screens that are like a fork, what's it called, IMAX cinema, massive. So I'm walking in this hall, super impressed with the size, and I'm like, oh my god, there's a reason. No, this is why they were saying ICE is so big. And then I stumble upon some mates of mine who were there from South Africa. And one of them says, guys, should we go see the rest of it? Let's go see the other halls.
more?
I thought it was, and I was super impressed with just hall 2, but there were another 4.
Yeah.
Massive. That's a massive industry.
Listen, when it comes to running events for an industry, it's always a matter of thinking how you want to position yourself, right? Because like in any business, I'm sure that you have experienced this too. When you start a certain activity and it's small scale, it's pretty easy to get to a certain level. But the moment you want to scale up and take it to the next level, the amount of investment that you need to do in it, and I'm not just talking financially, which obviously it's a factor, but in terms of HR resources and teams and like, everything, it's just like, it's not times 2, it's maybe like times 10, just to be able to scale up, to go to the next level. Otherwise you stagnate in there. So you can either focus on smaller scale events that are very quality focused, or do very large events where the quality gets diluted. So at the end of the day, it's a decision. In our case, we're not small scale events because if you're talking about the Finance Magnates events, for example, they're very focused on C-level quality. If you're talking about the IFX events, it's B2B and B2C, but it's also by vetting. Like every single registration is verified and is vetted before accepting them to come. They need to verify that they're a trader, or that they have an account, for example, or that they're in communication with a broker about opening an account, so on and so forth. So it's not just open entry for anybody to come. So we focus on quality because we have seen that throughout the years, this is what our clients value most in working with us. And that's why they trust us. So we bring them quality on B2B and on B2C. When it comes to B2B, the industry of B2B is way smaller than B2C.
Sure.
So if you do something that is B2B, it's by definition going to be smaller. And the more niche you are, the smaller it's going to be. But it's still big. When we're talking about 2,500, 3,000 attendees, that's big.
Yeah.
And then in retail, you go to 7,000 attendees, 8,000 attendees, like now in Dubai, for example. Then that's larger. But if you want to go to a level like you were mentioning,
40K,
ICE,
50,000,
then it's a whole different game, because at that point you need to open up to everyone, because you cannot do the vetting of the quality and ensure the quality of everyone if you keep the same team for sure. And to scale up that much, to be able to keep the quality and grow it to that level, it's not really possible. So when you go to these size of events, you need to know that it's going to be harder to find quality leads for your business, that you're not going to have time to go through the whole event. Like you were saying, it's 4 other halls, right? I mean, it's gigantic. Last time in Dubai, we had a booth, obviously. And I was most of the time at the booth or doing interviews. I didn't do any panels this time, but even with that, I was constrained to my booth area for most of the time. And the little time that I had to go around, there was 200 booths. I did not have time to go through the entire hall in 2 days. So when you go to an event of 20,000, 40,000 attendees, you need to know you're not going to manage to go through even an entire hall.
I agree. So it's a different experience. And while this was my first participation in as an attendee at an iGaming, it was definitely some different in terms of experience. When I attend the Finance Magnates and the Ultimate Fintech, the IFX events, because obviously, I've been in this industry for long, I know many people in the industry, it's very difficult for me to go through the entire hall on one day because I keep stopping, right. speaking, which is exactly what you want at these events. Where at the ICE, which was 10 times bigger, right? I was just walking through, and then I was stopping at, points that interested me and I wanted to find out more, but I just kind of scanned through. It was very different. I don't know. In the coming years, if I do get more involved, known in the industry, I guess, as I expand into that network, I'll see if it's different, but as an attendee, for sure, a different experience. And I'm sure the size contributes to that, and also the vetting. It's a big thing, and it's exactly what we want. I wouldn't, if it was up to me to ask,
wish
you guys,
list.
Change this or change that, I'd say no, don't change. Keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's good.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Right. Let's move on. So you purchased Forex Live.
Yeah, with the team and everything, which stayed on board, which was very important for us. It's continuity as well, and they're superstars. I mean, as an anecdote, 2 weeks ago, right before we went to the IFX Dubai, I was having a call with somebody from my team with a potential client. And maybe they will see this and they will recognize the conversation. And, we were explaining what kind of collaboration we can have. And we're talking about, the news, the reports, the coverage, the interviews, everything. And because they're also towards the retail side, we were talking about Forex Live. And they were like, oh, my God, Adam. And I said, one of the things that we do is webinars, for example. And it's very performance oriented because you have like the list of registration, so on and so forth. And he said, okay, but would you guys run it? I said, if you want to, we can either you run it on your end, or we can have somebody from our team have a discussion with you and run the webinar. And he said, if Adam Batten is going to be running the webinar, I would even shave and go to a haircut for him. So they're guys, because it's only guys, but that are on Forex Live that have been there for like more than 10 years, and they come from big banks, being analysts at big banks. They're currency analysts, they're central banks analysts. They're very, very highly experienced analysts in the retail industry, and they have been doing this for many years. So the people that know them, the community that knows them is highly attached to them. They're very popular. They're superstars. So we take them to events right and left to do speaking engagements or to be at stages.
Nice.
Adam is on Canadian TV pretty much every month. So
okay.
Yeah.
And so Forex Live, as you mentioned, is the B2C. So it's a website that has, I guess, dynamic content that's interesting for
traders,
investors, traders. And that's got a lot of traffic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it does. It's retail, so
big numbers and global, because the website is absolutely global. So it's in English at the moment. Future languages, but at the moment it's in English. So it's very focused on high quality analysis, both technical and fundamental analysis, from charts, etc., to analysis of what the market has done and a forecast of what the market will be doing. So brokers like to partner with us to get the feed of our news into their platforms, because obviously that increases engagement in
in their user base and keeps them on site and promotes trading volume, etc. So it's very appealing to them. So that's one of the things that Forex Live is good for. The other one is for the traders, because they can engage with the analysts, and there's a premium service where they can ask questions and they talk to them, and then there is, the predictions that they can get at a premium fee, etc. So it's towards the traders and the brokers that are interested in those traders. One, to get exposed to the audience that is already on Forex Live, and two, to keep the audience in their own platforms engaged with them.
Okay, so if I've understood this correctly, there are two revenue streams you just mentioned, and I think there's a third one which you can confirm. The first one is, and I didn't know that, so if I understood, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. So the first one is a broker can connect maybe with a newsfeed, an RSS feed, exactly, or an API that they feed into their own domains, their own environment, their own online presence.
Correct.
With whatever content gets generated within Forex Live, they can feed it into almost white labeled or as an RSS feed into their own. So that's one revenue stream. Then the other is the actual visitors of the site. So traders can get a premium service, which is like a subscription-based thing. Correct. Where they get more perks, so they can speak to the analysts and whatever. And I'm guessing there's a third one with the banners. So if I'm a broker, I can just advertise on your website.
Correct.
With the banners.
Yeah. So in the second one that you mentioned for the traders, so in this, there is a whole range of services that they can access to, but let's say the premium one, right? So they can get access to, it's not signals, but it's like 5 different forecasts within the month that gives them points of entry and exit on different assets. And this is also something that the brokers buy to offer to their traders, which also increases volume. So it's not just the whole trading feed, it's the feed of only these action points, let's say, in the market. And then the third one is, as you mentioned, like regular advertising within Forex Live. So be it through webinars where you present your product, you present your brand, etc., and then you expose to the Forex Live audience on specific topics. The usual banners, etc., but mostly towards content, because Forex Live and Finance Magnates, I think one of the things that we have done great is our SEO that you were mentioning before. So the SEO, it's still very, very popular, and it's one of the main reasons that a lot of companies will want to publish their news on Forex Live, because you get the domain of Forex Live, passing the authority on to you, vouching for you, etc., and you expose your news to a highly qualified audience. So,
which demographic is the most traffic? Was it just the most traffic? I was going to ask. So, which country?
So,
or is it like worldwide? An exact distribution across?
No. It's a good question. So if we're talking, I'll tell you as Finance Magnates what we see in terms of trends in the industry. So it's very different in B2B than in B2C. So if we're talking about traffic on B2B in terms of audience, at the moment, both our websites are in English, but we obviously get exposed to the needs of the audience when our clients come and see, do you have in this language or do you have in that language, or how do you suggest we enter this market, or could you give us a report on how to enter that market? So I can tell you that in terms of brokerages, the hottest areas right now are Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, in that order.
Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia.
Yes, they each have very, very different nature of doing business, and the expectations from traders in every region are totally different. If we're talking about Finance Magnates demographic traffic in terms of visitors, it's worldwide. But why I always say that is not really relevant where the traffic comes from, because you and me are today here, but last week you were in ICE in Barcelona, so you're pinging from Spain. The week before you're in Dubai, you're pinging from Dubai. And the traffic of Finance Magnates is B2B. It's business people, right? So it doesn't really matter where the ping is coming from at a specific time, because we travel all the time. In Forex Live, that is different because that is the retail audience. So that is, I don't know, your nephew going online and looking how to trade, right? So those, because the website is in English, at the moment, the highest amount of traffic is from English-speaking regions. It has had a huge growth. South Africa, Australia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Southeast Asia, South Africa, and Latin America slightly, but it's mostly Spanish. If you're going into LATAM and you don't have Spanish speakers, get Spanish speakers.
Right.
It is the way, yeah.
Super interesting. I'm just thinking potential ways to cooperate. Yeah. So.
always. That's what we like to do, right? We work with everybody in this industry. We like to be technology agnostic, and we like to be not partnership agnostic in that sense, but we work with everyone. And this is why we do things like, the evergreens. And that's why people trust us, because they know that when we publish something, we're not being influenced or biased. When something is promotional, we'll say this is promotional, this is paid for. But in the news side, everything that is newsroom, it's not influenced, and we piss off people a lot very often, but we have to maintain our credibility, and that's the way to be the authority in the industry. So we have to keep that in order to be the neutral actor that enables and gives opportunities to everyone. So that's why we do the awards, for example, the Finance Magnates annual awards, that we did them in October last year. We're going to do them again this year in October. So we are looking at ways of recognizing brands in a fair way that is representative of the industry on multiple levels. So we developed I think it's the only system that exists in our industry for sure, that takes the votes of retail, because we have Forex Live. So we have a way of getting the votes in through the retail audience, and we get the votes from the B2B industry through Finance Magnates. So we're the only ones positioned to be able to do this. And then we get a panel of judges, again, who would be able to get, major CEOs that are neutral in the industry, that are agnostic to brokers, for example, to actually come together and vote on several categories. So this is what we want to do. And it's part of our mission and our vision. Give the stage to brands and recognize them in a fair way, while it also makes commercial sense, So we obviously charge for the visibility that we're giving to all of these brands, but the awarding system is unique.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, and I know I've seen many businesses strive to get that. They really try to get that award. Because it adds to I guess authority, the validation that they want to show out to the market. It's
a transfer of trust at the end of the day, I think, and that's something you need when doing business.
100%. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously, you're trying different. So back to the B2B side and IFX. I know Bangkok was a problem one last year because of regulation.
Mm-hmm. It's a challenge always. Thailand is difficult.
Thailand's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Hong Kong. It was Hong Kong before that stopped because of COVID.
Exactly.
Then it switched to Bangkok, and I think this year, where is that specific?
Hong Kong. It's going back to Hong Kong.
Back to Hong Kong. Which you prefer?
I think everybody prefers, Thailand is a region that is booming, but the downside of having an emerging region is the gray areas in regulation and the limitations for the actors to be able to participate. So you obviously want to offer a safe environment and a nurturing environment for them to be at, and Hong Kong offers that. And it was always in Hong Kong, and everybody was begging, when can we go back to Hong Kong? Yeah. So finally.
Hong Kong, I love Hong Kong. And with Bangkok, just a little bit off topic story here that I want to share.
Do tell.
So the first time I went to Bangkok, we were in a taxi, and it took 1.5 hours in the traffic to do 1.5 kilometers, but it was pouring down rain, so we couldn't get out and walk.
Right.
But we were stuck in this taxi for 1.5 hours when our arrival from the airport to get to the hotel. So I said, I'm not getting into a cab again. I'm going to use these little scooters that they get. So you jump on the back as a passenger. Obviously, I don't have a helmet, so no helmet. The first time I did that, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna
die.
Today is the day I die. Because this guy was going oncoming traffic. There's a freaking bus that's 3 stories tall coming this side, and he's going at what seemed to me straight onto the back of another truck. But he somehow went into the middle of them, and I'm doing this to dodge side mirrors and things.
Yeah.
And after about 5 minutes, then the adrenaline was flowing through my blood. I was actually enjoying it.
You got addicted to
Yeah,
it.
because we were passing the traffic very quickly.
Yeah.
I was getting from point A to point B very efficiently with adrenaline. It was like a roller coaster. So I thought I'd share that story.
Yeah, I have to say, unfortunately, I have not been to Bangkok. I was going to say yet, but it seems like I'm not going to because we're moving the event. But yeah, the very first year I was like, oh yeah, finally I'm going to get to Thailand. I just needed the excuse, you know? And then I was like, okay, because that year is when I moved on C-level. Then I was like, okay, I don't really have an excuse to go there because I'm sending the biz dev team, etc. I'll sit this one out. The year after I was like, okay, I cannot go because personal reasons, etc. So I couldn't go at that time. And then last year I was like, oh, I'm tired, you know, I'm going to sit this one out. The team is going anyway, so I'll go next year. And then this year we're doing it in Hong Kong, so I missed my chance. I haven't seen any of that beauty, but I've heard a lot of stories about Thailand.
Thailand's beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful for sure, but you know, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting place, I've heard.
The city of sin, they call it, right?
Yeah, I can see where that would come from.
Yeah, it's crazy. I also know last year, just speaking about different countries, you tried the Australian one.
Yeah.
How was that?
Australia was amazing. I think that I personally loved it. I mean, if Australia wasn't that far, because you know, at the day we left, I was awake when the plane took off until we finished crossing Australia, and I wanted to stay awake to see how long it takes to cross Australia, just to fly over it. It was 5 hours. 5 hours.
Yeah.
I said, you know, in Cyprus, if we jump on a plane for 5 hours, you're in the UK.
Yeah.
In 3 hours, you can be literally anywhere else. Like you can go to Dubai, to Qatar, to Egypt, to Lebanon, to Jordan, to you know, Spain, to Greece. Like it doesn't matter, France, you name it. You can go to so many places. In Australia, in less than 5 hours, you don't get out of Australia. So if it was closer, it's probably a place where I would move to. It's amazing. And in terms of business, it was super exciting because of this traveling limitation, a lot of Australian businesses cannot afford to travel that often, you know. So maybe they will go to London, which is very far away. Maybe they will go to Thailand this year, Hong Kong, but it's rare because anywhere for them it's many hours. So everybody was so excited that we finally brought the events to them. So I think that anybody you speak to, the feedback is very, very high quality. All the top decision makers were there. It wasn't huge. It was a first year, and we would love to do it again. The problem is that we had a complication with the dates where we couldn't book the dates that we wanted for this year. So this year is not happening, but hopefully we can bring it again, because the FM Summits ideally is the kind of event that is at very well-established financial hubs in the world. So London is obviously one of them. Sydney, for me, when I was there, it's like the London of the Pacific.
Got it.
That's how I would see it, you know? I suddenly realized about that when we were there. But then eventually it would be other places that are very well established, maybe Singapore, maybe New York, you know? Stay tuned. We will see.
Yeah, interesting. And how about Africa? So
Africa, this is going to be the third year.
Yes.
And it was super successful from the first one. It's more retail oriented. It also has B2B, but for African businesses. and it's the biggest one in Africa. So the first and second year was in Johannesburg, which they were absolutely amazing. But then last year we got a lot of requests to do it the year after in Cape Town. So we're not married to one city, you know. I mean, we can move around, and it's the Africa Summit, so potentially could be a different country in future years. But this year we decided to do it in Cape Town, because a lot of businesses, they told us that they moved to Cape Town, and it's a very nice area, and it's very safe, and it's on the seaside, so people really enjoy that atmosphere. And a lot of new tech hubs are growing in Cape Town. So this year is in Cape Town.
Yeah, I was going to ask why did you go to Cape Town? Okay. Yeah.
High demand. It was actually popular demand, to be honest. And then we went checked, and this is what the locals were saying, that Cape Town is growing in terms of tech hub.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of event organizing, I guess obviously, you know, we've spoken about the challenges around online marketing, you know, offline. What do you see? How do you see the landscape changing, or what tools are you using? You know, we were speaking about Forex Live before. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the challenge of, you know, currently it's only English. And you need to add obviously Spanish for the LATAM area, and you know, we've got the Asia, whatever. Mm-hmm. Language is a big one, and I think that's very easy to solve today with AI. Super easy.
But we don't do things that way. You know, when we're talking about finance magnates, listen, AI, it's here to stay for sure. It's a very useful tool, but it's a tool. You should never, my personal advice and what I apply throughout our organization, you should not think that AI can replace you. AI can assist and do a lot of heavy loading, but it's not going to replace the brain thinking as to why this, or come up with a new idea for something. It can help you speed up the processes and do things faster and more of them, but it's not going to replace you. So if we're going to do the websites in another language, first of all, you cannot rely on the AI to get news, because whenever the AI picks up on something, that means it's already out there. So by definition, it's no longer news.
Right.
So you can do translation of existing content, but then that content would not be representative of the region. Because, you know, if you have Canadian traders looking at what the Canadian dollar versus the US dollar is doing, who cares in Chile about the Canadian dollar? You know, like, they care about their pesos.
100%.
So you need to take topics that are representative of the region and do localization globally. This is also a trend. When we were talking about trends and what I see, for example, a lot of the conversations, if not all of them, that I have with C-levels in this industry, from retail to B2B, no exception, is what a good friend of mine, CMO, said is glocalization. Mm-hmm. So it's global localization. You're global, but you need to be local. You need to be local in a global way, right? It's a challenge. In previous years, you would be just local and keep it isolated. So different domains per region, you know, just one team isolated here, one team isolated there. No, now you are a global brand, but offering solutions that are tailored to that region and those needs.
100%. That is a big challenge, that payments, so payment gateways.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 100%, yeah.
Because there's different means of that the market has adopted in terms of online transfer.
Correct.
So especially in Africa, there's also in Asian regions where it's a lot of is the coupons which are used, or SMSs.
Yeah.
You know, with SMS. Yep. So localization is a big one on many different fronts, and it makes sense, you know, with regard to localization on a website, which should seem super easy to do. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to be translating content from English that was composed for a specific jurisdiction, and you just translate that to a different language, it's not interesting. So the localization in this aspect is not so much translating the language, but it is also that the content is relevant to the jurisdiction. which, by the way, I think AI is going to solve as well.
Maybe on the translation part or on the collecting of things that already exist, but the AI doesn't create new things. Again, it's not a human talking to another human about something I heard, and then you go and research and investigate and then collect a whole sorts of... Then you can give it to AI to produce something.
Right.
But the previous step, either a human does it or it doesn't exist.
Right.
So it's very easy to be a copycat. You just put a bot gathering information from what already exists and doing a collection and present it in a different way. But what's the real value in that? You know, we aim at producing genuine and quality things. So actually, I'm going to go back to the payments that you mentioned, because it's a very, very good example of what you were saying. So if you take, you mentioned Africa, you mentioned Southeast Asia, but if we were to do news for Latin America, for example, and we cover 4 verticals, right? We cover FX, right? So anything that is trading, electronic trading, CFDs trading, anything trading, tech, payments, and crypto. If you take payments, right, in Europe, most of the things that are going to be talked about are AML, KYC, Visa, MasterCard. In the US, it's going to be Amex. So there is players that are native to those regions, so that all those companies are interested in reading about them. If you go to Latin America with the same, what's the interest? They don't use Visa. They don't use MasterCard. 65%, I think, of the population is unbanked. They don't even have a bank account.
Jeez.
How do they pay each other? It's a cash-based system. So unless you talk to them about things that are of interest to them, if you go with a brand and you want to target that, it doesn't matter how much money you pour into marketing. If you're not resonating with that audience, you can keep digging. You're digging in the wrong hole.
100%.
So you need to go where, qualify it, know what you're doing, research first. So it's crucial to know the needs of your audience before taking a step and going all in somewhere.
That makes a lot of sense. And also, having this conversation, we understand where can AI as a tool help me, how it evolves in the next 10 years. Let's see what happens. But for now, I agree with that. It's use AI where it's effective and where it makes sense. And it doesn't mean it's, the answer to everything. So in fact, last night, so my son, he was doing his homework, Greek. And he had an assignment to do, right? So the assignment was, write an essay, a page of, I don't know what topic. So while he's doing as he started, he goes, Papa, ChatGPT knows Greek. I go, no. Don't use ChatGPT, buddy. He got angry with me. He goes, why? I mean, it's easier, all this argument. So I said, no, the teacher didn't give you that assignment to test your ability on how to prompt ChatGPT. What you need to build, the building blocks later, sure, use ChatGPT if it's going to help you speed up the process. But now you're developing, your brain's, you need to write the content yourself.
You need to think.
You need to think and compose that essay yourself with your mistakes, with your touch, your feel, you. Because if you just go and take ChatGPT and you just copy paste, that's not you. And all you've displayed there is your ability to copy paste and ask ChatGPT to do your homework for you. It's like getting somebody to do your homework for you. So he goes to me, so what's wrong with that?
Oh, kids. Yeah.
So you can appreciate, because that's also important, right? How to delegate, how to be efficient.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but there's also another element you should not ignore. The importance of using your own brain, to do things, especially, with the kids now, where they, I almost wish we could just disconnect the internet for anybody from 0 to 18 or 15, so they can have the similar upbringing as what we had. Okay, look,
I was having a similar
there's
conversation.
Pros and cons, right? There's pros and
Yeah.
cons because the world is changing for sure. But something that is not changing ever is the anatomy, the biology of our brain. Sure, we can, neurally with like Neuralink and, all these things that are coming with, a supplement to the brain, plugging in our brain to the AI and whatever, fine. But this will never be delete from nature. That our brain is made of fat primarily with neurons and synapses that need work.
Yeah.
And, the brain parts, our learning process, that's always going to be there. We have to have that in place. And whatever tools and supplements we'll have in the future, great. But especially in the upbringing, we got to keep that, intact.
Yeah. I was having a similar conversation maybe a week ago. I don't remember with whom, but we were also talking about, the access to telephones and tablets and everything, and how crazy us parents of this generation were going over our kids being exposed to this too early. And I was thinking, I am sure that our parents were having that conversation with other parents about us having access to television.
Sure.
So I think every generation has had some technological advancement that got them worried. And also, I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, that's when the internet came to be spread. And I had access to a computer for the first time with internet. And there was like all these chats and this messenger and, all of these features. And it was scaring my parents a lot. And we survived that. So, I'm 100% with you. It needs to be controlled. But at the same time, I try to reassure myself that, others have been in our shoes before.
Sure. Yeah,
So
100%.
I'm sure they will be fine. They will be fine.
Yeah.
Eventually, they will
Yes.
be fine.
Yes.
But yeah, if we take it to our work line, every time I have the conversation on stage with the top CEOs about AI and how they use it in the workplace, and every single event, I ask them to see if there is any changes. It's not very different. Like, they're all quite disenchanted with it, saying, this already exists. I mean, we have very advanced algorithms, programming, especially brokers and risk management solutions and tech solutions. They're like, it's just another way of calling it. We were already using this, and the only way that we're using it now is to help us process data faster. But it's exactly the same thing. So we're not doing anything significantly new, that it already existed. And okay, it will evolve probably further on, but we don't expect the AI to be used on a higher level if we're talking industry-wide, other than to still process data faster. I do see in specific departments, it can help with heavy loading of multiple tasks. Like preparing a presentation. Once you already have everything, I used to have to spend 1 week to prepare a report at the end of the quarter to present to the board and things like that. Nowadays, I just take everything, put it there, boom, it's in a presentation, makes the charts, the graphs. I don't need to manually upload all the Excels and everything. It's a different process, so it speeds things up. It doesn't do it for you, but it speeds things up. In marketing as well, it can help to create copy, but eventually I think we're all already training our eye to identify what has been generated by AI. And this is also something that is going to come after the hype of AI. It's going to lower the value of using AI, and it's going to give more value to the brain, the human brain, because something that is unique, created, that the AI cannot replicate in your own tone. Like this conversation, for example. I mean, you can put an avatar, you can give them our voices, whatever not, but they wouldn't have my knowledge or your knowledge, and they wouldn't be interacting in the same fashion. It wouldn't be my personality or yours with the anecdotes that we're sharing, right? This is life experiences that we're talking about. So it's going to bring more value to the human side, I think, and it's going to keep the AI just to do routine tasks, I hope.
There's a lot of skeptics here because I agree with the concern. So when we reach artificial general intelligence, and where the AI surpasses human intelligence, because it's an interesting debate, right, on what
Yeah.
you've just mentioned here, because it's very logical, but then there's also, what is consciousness? So what is creativity? What is all that? Our brain processes data that, we've got eyes, ears, that's the input. We get data, it gets stored in our brain, and then we process, right? We process that. We're able to process now and come up with creative ideas and anecdotes or whatever. That is, AI is not there yet. But if you think about it in terms, like, technically, you get like really nerdy and think about what is that? What are we doing here? As a human, just in the same way we're able to process what 1 + 1 is, or what is 12 times 12, so then it gets a bit more difficult. You're able to process it in your mind. There's a series of actions that are happening there. A calculator does it more effectively, and then in that comparison, AI, I think, might have the ability to think like a human until it gets to the point where it surpasses the ability of a human, because
to think, but to feel, I think that's where your question is.
Well, what's consciousness? What's emotion? It's a series of processes, thinking, that releases certain chemicals in our brain. We think, there's dopamine, there's whatever, all these things that make us feel. That's a feedback response for us to position ourselves in the world.
Yeah.
Who knows if they can replicate
we could
that.
get it very philosophical and talk about, but are we just our thinking processes? Or is there a soul involved? Because that's, if you want to simplify it and make it very philosophical at the same time, it would be like, okay, machines do not have a soul, whereas humans do.
Yes.
Depends on where you stand on that debate, and that's a whole debate in itself. Then that, I think, would make the difference. But it is scary for me to think that a machine can eventually surpass the intelligence and the processing capacity of a human, because eventually it can think of self-preservation and survival. And if, there is this movie, I'm sure that you have watched, I don't remember the name, but there is this girl that grows up in space in, I think it's a station or something, and Mother, it's called Mother. And there is this machine that raises her, and she thinks that she's the only human that ever lived, and the machine is educating her into showing her how humans destroy the planet and blah, 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 blah. Towards the end of the movie, I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil it, but towards the end of the movie, the machine shows her and breaks it up to her. She finds out that eventually it's the machine that killed everybody and only saved this one girl, because she thought that the humanity was rotten to the core, and the only way to save the planet was to kill everybody and start from scratch, because the instructions of this machine were to ensure that the planet survives. So the logical development of all of the thinking processes of this machine were towards the end goal of making humanity survive with a planet that survives. So she said, okay, if humanity as a concept needs to survive, I need to save one human or two, and I need to make the planet survive, and the humans are the cancer of the planet, so I'm just going to kill them and raise one from scratch, that is properly pure, well-educated and everything. And it was the end of humanity in that movie, so it's scary, because self-preservation and the way that instructions are going to be interpreted a lot of times is open to interpretation.
Sure.
So yeah,
I think there's just so much we don't know as a human, as a race. But while we are the smartest species on the planet,
and at the same time the most stupid, because sometimes the obvious things we just miss them, man.
Yeah, 100%. Like this, ideologies that just don't make sense. But there's so much we don't know. That question about a soul and God and who are we with our puny little brains to judge if if God does or does not exist? I don't know. I mean, I believe in God. Whatever. There's a bigger thing happening here. We exist. There's some things here, right? We exist somehow. What was the beginning of all this? Who knows? I think there's just so much we don't know.
Obviously.
Yeah. We were getting into really deep.
Just to get a level deeper, because it falls into it. I don't know if you saw, but recently, a few weeks ago, Google came out in a scientific paper with the publication that they have created a super chip that apparently proves that the multiverse exists. Yeah, you're laughing, but it was like very scary. I actually went into the paper and I tried to read it and I don't understand anything. It's all scientific jargon. But they say that the way this microchip has processed the information that we're given, it's absolutely impossible that it was to do it by itself, even in I think they said millions of years. So that it proves that because he was able to process it in I don't remember the details.
I saw that this was related to the quantum processor.
Yes, exactly.
Quantum computing. There was a name. There was a name that they.
Yeah, I don't know what they have called it. I forgot. I'm bad with these details. I remember the big picture, but I forget the details. But it basically processed the formula that they had given it, the problem that they had given it to solve would have taken millions of years. And it processed it, I think, in seconds, which was impossible. So they said, okay, how did it do it? And they came to the conclusion somehow that there must be a multiverse. So the chip processed it throughout multiple space timelines, something, I don't know. So it's scary, the way that we're going and the findings that we're getting to. My God.
If you read about quantum physics, because I have no clue about this stuff, but I'll give just the little bit I know. So quantum physics and the quantum processor is the ability to be in multiple states at the same time. So while you have a CPU, normal CPU, today's CPUs that can be in one state at any given moment, 0 or 1, all systems and their applications and solutions that exist today, trading server, right, and how it works, or whatever, system that exists that's processed on a PC or a server is built, the architecture is built in such a way that one process can be done at a time, 0 or 1. But because the processes are so strong, like obviously back when you said you first connected to the internet, the CPU processing speed, the frequency was a lot less than what it is today. Like there's multiple cores and it's able to process thousands of processes within like a very short time span. But it still remains the fact that it is one at a time, although quick. Quantum is the ability to process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever instantaneously. So in the analogy where I read this, if I can just remember it because it was a while ago, if you had to imagine somebody who needed to read, I'll give you a task. Go into this library that's got 1,000 books and read the books. What you would need to do today, today's CPU, you'd go and open book number 1, page 1, read the page word for word, next page word for word, page 2 word for word. Now your CPU in today's world gets really powerful and you're able to process many at a time. So you're flipping through the pages quickly, next book. That's today's processes. Quantum is going to the library and read, sure, I'm in, bam, I've read it. Everything at the same time. Every single page, every book, everything was open at the same time and I got it. That's the power of quantum. But it is a sensitive state. The challenge today is that it is a very sensitive state to keep stable. It crashes. right? In terms of, I'm speaking purely about CPU. Quantum physics has so many other discussions and domains around, one person can be at the same place at the same time as someone else, and you're able to have the same thoughts, and that I'm lost. But in terms of CPU, that's what I know, and it's fascinating. So imagine the power of that kind of processing with a sophisticated AI. So you can't dismiss the fact that artificial general intelligence and these fears that we just spoke about, where the machine decides we got to remove all of humanity because it's a cancer. Which again, this is another thing. I think we just don't know much about anything because this view where people are viewed as humanity is used as the cancer of the planet. Maybe we've just got it all wrong. Maybe we're not. We're natural. We're here. We've developed in our natural ways. We've got technology that came naturally. In my mind, technology is a natural outcome of our natural being. So anyway, we dug into a lot of philosophical topics here, Andrea. So, and we've been speaking for a good hour, more than an hour. Time flies, right?
Time flies when you're having interesting conversations.
Yes. So I think let's do some closing comments here.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Let's maybe give the audience what 2025 holds. What are the events? Where can they find you? And thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dinos, for inviting me once more. It's been a pleasure. I think it's very, very interesting conversations that we have had. And the 2025 is packed for us in terms of Finance Magnates and Forex Live, our online business. We have a huge focus this year on data and intelligence, as I've been mentioning. We're going to be coming up with a lot of different reports. So the next one coming up is compliance. For example, there is a high demand in this industry for a sort of report that is focused only on compliance elements. So that's going to be coming up probably in March. And other different reports towards the end of the year. And it's a product that will develop way further. Then our awards, because they're giving the stage, the recognition, the bringing people together, the networking, etc., is at the core of our beliefs. And everything that has to do with content, in-depth, valuable content. So the webinars, the interviews, the podcast as well, everything that we do in terms of news, interviews, either written, video, voice, doesn't matter. That's at the core of what we're going to be doing as well. And reviews. So company reviews, video reviews, we like to help companies, advise them in how to present themselves and in the right channels to the right audience. That's from online, from the events, the Finance Magnates events and the IFX events are going to keep us very, very busy this year. And people keep telling me, they just keep getting more and more, and they will be getting more and more and more. But the idea eventually is to find out which ones work best for you, for your brand. You don't have to go to all of them, but we aim at having something for everyone. So Finance Magnates events, more curated, more B2B oriented, very high level networking between high executives. So starting the calendar from now, so the IFX Dubai just took place. The next one is going to be in April in Mexico. So that one is B2B and B2C. It's the only one in the LATAM region. Then May is going to be Cape Town, the FMAS. Then it will be Cyprus in June. Then it will be Hong Kong in October, and then the London Summit in November once more. Those are the ones for this year. So I hope people won't complain much because we're not adding any, but we're working on adding a few more for 2026. So this year is gearing up and is helping with the, we're increasing the teams. We're getting a bigger powerhouse to do more events. And then the marketing agency is expanding, obviously, into other sorts of businesses as well, from gambling as well. They work with gambling, and real estate, and basically anybody that needs a marketing agency. It's specialized in fintech, of course, but they don't turn away anybody because they're from a different industry. So that is the focus this year.
Good to know. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dinos.
I enjoyed this very much, and see you soon.
See you soon.